Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another great webinar production that we're putting on. CCAT is hosting these on behalf of the New England Regional Defense Industry Collaboration, or NERDIC. Today's program, as we've been talking more and more, actually over the past couple of years around Industry 4.0, this particular one on generative design is one of the key features of Industry 4.0. It begins with design, begins with that thought process, and goes all the way through the manufacturing process and into the inspection process, and all the great data and things that we've been talking about that we're going to be getting throughout the new technologies that are being implemented through I4.0. So generative design is very important to us. There's a phenomenal presentation today. If we can go to the next slide, we always have a full agenda, so we try to go through this quickly. Pat Giavara is joining us, the Assistant Director of the Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center, and I'm going to call her on in just a minute. The Great Generative Design program is putting on by Dr. Michael Bogomolny, who's going to be introduced by our own Nasir Mannan, our principal engineer here at CCAT. So a great, again, presentation. We're going to have a nice Q&A section on this, but if we keep going on to the next slide, NERDIC is something that came out of a lot of discussion with industry, and really it's about the need of what we all and how we all need to operate, going forward. NERDIC just didn't come about because of no reason. We have 6 New England states here, and the capabilities and competencies that are here are really tremendous. And we've, for most of the time, been doing this alone with, state by state. And what NERDIC is doing is pulling together this ecosystem, and there's a great steering committee with a group of industry and in the manufacturing extension programs and representatives from the state, all on this. Again, developing the ecosystem, promoting the region, but you've got industry, educational institutions, the MEPs, the PTACs, everyone on this really buying in, saying we've got to come together as a group, a real powerful group in New England. And when you look at all these assets that we have, we can compete with any region around the world, but we've got to come together more and align our resources and leverage our resources. And again, it's around, for now, we're talking about this Industry 4.0 technologies, and these things are going to evolve. So it's not just about the technology and it's about the adoption, but it's also workforce development, training. We know how valuable that is. But as you can see, this is very robust. And as we look at this and look around New England, the most important organizations in each of these states are really the manufacturing extension program. So Patricia, if you'll come on for just a moment, Vermont has been one of those leaders. We have one of these programs, Patricia, in each state. And I know as a model, the MEPs have always come together. You've always collaborated. It's really a national network. So, tell us a little bit about what you're doing and all the different partners that we have here at the table.
Great. Hi, Ron. Thanks for having me here today. And you're right. The manufacturing extension partnership within NIST is a national network. So there's an MEP in every state and in Puerto Rico. And here in New England, yeah, we've got a long history of working together. I've been with the MEP here in Vermont for 18 years, and when I joined VMEC, I was working with the New England centers on a defense collaborative, actually, at that point in time. So it's great to be back together with NERDIC. So I just want to acknowledge the other New England MEPs. So some of them are very recognizable by MEP in their name, like Mass MEP and the New Hampshire MEP and the Maine MEP. I see they have a new logo. And then the MEP of Rhode Island is Polaris, and of course in Connecticut is Constep. And yeah, our role as an MEP and as the MEP National Network is to strengthen and empower manufacturers. And we do that, working with companies at all levels and across the enterprise. So it might be working with CEOs, engineers, the sales team, working on the plant floor, and it's really about systems and services and to help companies improve and grow. And this could be working with people, organizational development, process improvement, new products or product enhancements, and what we're talking about here in technology, I mean, it cuts across all of those aspects, right? It's touches everything, the people, the products, the process, and it's all about improvement in this rate of change.
Mm-hmm. Well, Patricia, you guys, the MEPs, you've really led the way in a lot of this kind of boots on the ground. You're right in there with these companies. So, your network is so powerful, but so important to this type of initiative, because we really need to be understanding better really what you guys provide. I mean, I know because we work with you, and the resources are tremendous, and getting the word out more and collaborating more, and then tying in, a center like CCAT, the Berkshire Innovation Center, what's going on in Maine, and what's being built out in Vermont as well.
Right.
As we look at these and say, okay, it's not just about the programming and stuff, but we actually have facilities. We actually have technical resources to do projects, and we're actually going to hear about some of that today. So, that hands-on project and bringing companies in for these demonstrations so they can kind of have that aha moment and see it firsthand is really exciting.
Yeah, like you said, the different advanced manufacturing centers that are being built across New England, at the University of Maine, UNH, Vermont Technical College, and we're fortunate to have a couple of Manufacturing USA centers based here in New England, and then other programs like the Tech Bridge, 401 Tech Bridge, connecting with the Navy and technologies there. So absolutely, we learn more kind of about each other and about what the resources are in New England. And I just believe that the regional approach is so important, because we are definitely stronger together, right? We have to leverage resources. We're not big enough in any one state to have everything. And, our manufacturers and their customers have diverse needs. So when we're able to tap this wide variety of resources, it just, really helps us to serve the Department of Defense and all of our customers so much better.
Sure. And, when you look at our major industries in aerospace defense and shipbuilding and medical device, and now we've got offshore wind and clean energy coming, the big, I'll just speak for Connecticut. We have Raytheon here, we have General Dynamics Electric Boat, we have Lockheed Martin and Sikorsky, but they have operations in all the states. So, it actually is to be speaking in some strategic way. Certainly when we look at the submarines that are being built, it just transcends all throughout New England and certainly the supply chain. So the more that we come together and leverage these resources, the better. And it really is, a critical time, as we talk about some of the challenges that New England has. We've got a great quality of life, but, it means our cost of living might be a little bit more. Maybe our energy costs or our labor rates are a little bit more. So being smart and efficient in our processes and making sure we're adopting the latest technologies to build those efficiencies, take advantage of them in our businesses, it's more critical than ever. These technology advancements are coming fast. So this type of program and all the work that the MEPs are doing is it's always been critical, but now we're at a point where, boy, we really have to step it up.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many choices as well, right? So one of the ways that the MEP centers can help manufacturers is to navigate, right, to make connections to the other resources that are most relevant, and help to take a systematic look at, where's the greatest need and opportunity, and navigate all of the resources and technologies that are available.
Yeah. Well, Patricia, thank you. It's been great working with the MEPs. We're certainly looking for your continued leadership, and thank you obviously to NERDIC for pulling us together. The steering committee has put so much time into this, and we want to do this as a long-term sustainable model. We want to keep building on this. We don't want this to be a one-off. So I know we'll be doing a lot more work together.
Yeah. Thank you. Looking forward to the presentation.
Yep. Thanks, Patricia. So go to the next slide, and as we get into the presentation today, just a couple things I want to remind you, these handouts will be provided to you, so you'll have this whole presentation. Oop, and I don't know if it just popped off my screen. We're also going to be taking questions in the chat room. So if you have any questions, you can certainly put those in there, and then we'll have the Q&A section later. Now at this time, I just want to keep going. We'll introduce Nasir Mannan. Nasir is going to introduce our featured speaker in the presentation today. Give us a little segue into generative design. Nasir is a mechanical engineer and software engineer and leads CCAT's Advanced Design Automation Metrology Lab. And Nasir is just an incredible resource. He has really pulled this NERDIC program together. And Nasir, thank you for coming on. And hopefully, as soon as we're done, we're going to have the presentation back up.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ron, for that introduction. Very much appreciated. Good morning, and thank you for joining today's virtual technology introduction. We're really fortunate today in getting time from our guest speaker, Dr. Michael Bogomolny. He's the co-founder and CTO of ParaMatters. He really works on the cutting edge of what generative design can afford. The term generative design encompasses quite a bit, and today you'll gain an overview and get an understanding of what this technology can be used for, and really the paradigm shift this technology brings to autonomizing design workflows, but also the incredible design optimizations that can be tuned for specific manufacturing technologies like additive that are possible through this technology. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Michael Bogomolny to give you an introduction to this game-changing technology.
Thank you very much, Nasir. Thank you very much, Ron. Pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting us to present our technology. So, in a few words about the company, ParaMatters is Southern California-based startup company. It was founded about 4.5 years ago, but was founded by veterans from the industry, specifically from researchers and commercial software developer engineers, specifically to take the generative design to the next level, given the advancements of digital manufacturing technologies, including additive manufacturing technologies. So currently, most of our customers leverage generative design specifically from automotive, aerospace, defense industries. And we really think that we bring the most comprehensive generative design solution on the market today. And just in a few case studies that how our customers could leverage from this technology is, first of all, significant weight reduction, significant reduction of design cycles and time to market. And you can see that technology allows to generate lightweighted designs for nearly any material. It can be polymers, these can be metals, and various materials properties. So looking generally at what is called digital thread today, or an additive manufacturing workflow, if we look in the middle here, the additive manufacturing, it's not just about taking part and printing it. Additive manufacturing allows us generating very lightweighted structures and nearly to realize nearly any complexity. Hence, we are not limited to geometrical shapes. And in order to take the advantage of this technology, we need to design differently. And in recent years, the term of design for additive came across, and it's not just to create some complex shapes, it's really to take the advantage of material and ability to generate high performance parts, including parts consolidation. Having the design, we need to prepare design to manufacturing, meaning to depends on technology to find how to optimally orient the part, to generate support structures if needed, and to slice the model before sending it to manufacturing. Hence, instead of traditional CAD/CAM, we have stages of design for additive and preparation of model for additive. And after the printing, the inspection part is also extremely important. So in this presentation, I will mostly focus on the first stage of design for additive and to show really what we can do, as well as our company offering solution for preparation of model for additive as well. So now let's talk about basically generative design, what we are talking today. What is design, right? So in Wikipedia, if we look at the term, what is design, industrial design, it's basically creating part form prior to manufacturing, right? And if we talk about industrial functional design, especially for high performance parts, we need to make sure that this part is also physically viable, right? And in engineering terms, we say physically viable. We need to also be sure that in terms of finite element analysis, part can be viable. And if we go to industry today, automotive, aerospace, defense, whatever, industrial sectors, and we see how the engineering design cycle is built. So typically 2 engineers are involved. The first one is what we call CAD engineer, who is creating shapes based mostly on his intuition, using some CAD modeling, right? And then he transferred this shape that he created based on his intuition, he's sending to analyst, finite element analyst, who has to mesh the model, apply loads, define material properties, and check if, in terms of virtual physical tests, part doesn't break, right? We have to be sure that deformation, stresses, frequencies, and so on don't exceed the maximum limitation. Now, the design itself is done using CAD modeling, and CAD modeling is a lot of tedious operations based on primitives in CAD. So we have to create iteratively a shape, then give it to analysts, and in many cases there is like iterative cycle of changing shape analysis, and as a result, the design cycle is pretty long. It can take for simple parts, between 1 to 2 weeks, on to complex design projects, which can take months. And process is very iterative, labor intensive, and also human centric. If we will give the same design challenge to another team of engineers, they probably will come with a little bit different design. What is all about generative design? And also, in many cases, generative design, when we talk about generative design, it's related to additive, but not only. It can be also applied for traditional manufacturing. But for additive manufacturing, we need to understand that in many, to print design which was designed by traditional manufacturing doesn't make much sense. We need to leverage all the additive manufacturing advancements. Hence, we are able to consolidate parts. We're able to realize a lot of complexity. We are able to generate much higher performance parts, and probably also lightweight. And the technology behind it is what is called generative design. There are various definitions on generative design, what really generative design is. My personal definition is that it's algorithm-based design. We need to generate smart algorithms which can take into account all the constraints, and we are able to create viable geometry which can be manufactured and satisfies all physical constraints. And schematically, I can say it like this: we need to define a working environment, what we call design space. Since the shape generation based on physics, we need to apply also material properties, load boundary conditions, and design goals. And the algorithm should be able to generate a ready-to-manufacture model. That would be the ideal situation, right? And if we want to automate, we talked about Industry 4.0, it's all about automation. We would like to automate these design processes and to make them as automated as possible, to have as least manual interruption, human interruption into the process as possible. And I have an example here just to show you that you see traditionally designed bracket. If we want to leverage additive, we can consolidate, as an example, consolidate these 2 parts and consider this blue part as a design space we define material properties here as aluminum. We defined here loading conditions and manufacturing constraints as CNC milling and also as additive manufacturing. And you see an example how software was able fully automatically to generate design like this for CNC milling, and what you see now is for additive manufacturing. Of course, part is much more complex, but we can achieve significant lightweighting and also assembly reduction, which also projects on the supply chain and overall manufacturing. So let's look little now, zoom into what really generative design is and how it works, how we make it work, how we design problems. So currently, our solution from Paramaters, from the company that we develop, can take static and vibration problems into account. So beyond simple static loads, we can take also frequencies into account and control stresses, deformations, and stiffnesses in order to ensure very accurate manufacturing capabilities. We need to control feature sizes and also consider manufacturing technologies. And imagine how complex it is to create algorithms which takes all these into account. And I would like from here to jump into software and just to show generally how the flow works. As I mentioned, if you remember, we have to create, what I'm showing is our software and how it looks like in GUI. So we have to create, imagine we want to design a bracket like this. Actually, it's Airbus bracket. And we want to, of course, lightweight it. And so this is our, what we call available design space. Now, when designing this part, we need to keep some areas to be preserved, untouched. Each part that we design is a part of the global assembly, and we need to make sure that interfaces stay intact, they don't change. So ball bearing areas, some shafts or other areas should be preserved. So what we basically ask from users is to create this design space in CAD and to import this assembly into our platform. So once you import this assembly into our platform, so the flow is quite intuitive and easy to use. We also wanted to create this flow to be as intuitive as possible. So let's go together and try to define a problem. First, we have to define material properties. And let's assume this is aluminum. And we have material properties. If some material doesn't meet user's expectation, you can always manually edit material properties. Then we need, in the assembly that we imported, to classify, to tell to the algorithm what is the design space, right? So this is our design space, and what we call non-design features. What are the areas that should be preserved untouched by the algorithm? So basically everything which we define as non-design will be intact, unchanged, and design space part should be created within the design space area. It cannot exceed the other areas. So these are the constraints of the design problem. Then we need to define design loading cases. I have already predefined ones, but we can quickly go through. So having static or vibration load cases, vibration meaning we will have to create non-structural masses and boundary conditions and say that we would like to have vibration problems. In static load cases, user can specify what we call boundary conditions, how part is fixed against movement. So by default, each part or face and part is fixed against XYZ. And we have to apply loads. So users can define loads, they can define moments, they can define pressure, they can define acceleration. Actually very relevant for defense industry, a lot of acceleration loading cases. And users can define many load cases. So I have predefined like 2 load cases here, but typically that can be unlimited number of load cases. Of course, from design efficiency point of view, only necessary load cases should be considered. So having defined this, we need to basically to tell what's the goal of the design. And we have several definitions. For vibration load cases, typically users want to maximize fundamental frequencies. For static load cases, users either want to maximize stiffness. Maximizing stiffness in kind of engineering means, we say, minimizing compliance, keeping some given amount of material. So meaning we would like to remove 90% of material, we use only 10% of material to have the stiffest possible structure. Alternative formulation can be, we want to minimize the mass of the part, keeping stresses within the right range. And the last step is to define finite element resolution, feature size control, right? If we want to manufacture it with using some given technology and we want the minimum feature size to be 2.5 millimeters, for instance, we can control it. Then users can define symmetry plane if we want. This doesn't make sense. So if users would like to have final design to be completely symmetric, there is a way to enforce symmetry. And we can define manufacturing methods. Additive manufacturing, if it's milling, users can specify if it's 3-axis milling or 5-axis milling, and they can even define from what direction of the milling, and it will apply additional geometrical constraint to the final design. And typically, that's all. Users can just click the button design, and it will be running. We leverage the cloud computing because typically what's happening, this part will be meshed. Finite element analysis will be running repeatedly, and optimization algorithm will redistribute accurately materials such that it satisfies all the constraints. And it takes between 25 minutes up to a few hours, depending on the complexity. And software is able to generate fully automatically, very smooth, watertight, and ready to manufacture design. You can see the ghosted was the original part. The green is the optimized design. Of course, it's not just nice shape, it's backed by the finite element analysis, including deformations and stresses. And if this part is all the physical requirements are good, satisfying designer requirements, you can just download the file in STL format or step format, and it can be ready for further manufacturing. If you want to reevaluate this using other FEA package, it's also possible. And this is for static load cases. I have just another example. It's a different example, but it just shows you what can be achieved for vibration load cases when we wanted to maximize frequencies of the part, and it can show the first 3 modes and frequency values of the part. So it can really design for statics and for vibrations. And you can imagine, again, all these complex shapes was generated by software fully automatically. You can imagine how long it would take for engineer to even get close to this design. Based on intuition, it's very difficult to know exactly where to put material, and even knowing material just to generate shape like this will take probably months, while software is able to generate these designs within tens of minutes up to a few hours fully automatically. This is what generative design all about. And you can create several candidates and go from concept to final part and prototyping extremely quickly. And just to show you how design for additive would look like versus design for die casting, and versus design for CNC milling, 3 and 5-axis milling. So applying different manufacturing constraints for the same design problem, of course, will end up with a different shape. This is what basically the generative design about. Now, in few slides, I would like to show like few real case studies that we have had with our customers, from only those which we can present. This is a nice example showing how upright automotive suspension upright knuckle can be designed using what we call hybrid manufacturing. It's not a secret that additive is very appealing, but it's I would say quite expensive in this moment, especially going into metal, so metal additive manufacturing. So one very cost-effective method is when what we call investment casting. So using 3D printing, the polymer, so design was done for aluminum, and then this part was manufactured using polymer. Then you create sand cast mold, melt out polymer and cast aluminum inside. So this is much more effective, cost-effective process for metal creating of metal complex parts. Another case study that we had, and actually it shows that it's not about creating cool, nice looking organic shapes. This is all about creating really lightweighted and high performance structures. This project was our first project actually about 4 years ago with customized motorcycle company, when the original bracket was lightweighted. So basically we completely redesigned this bracket. We were able to reduce weight by 35%, reduce stresses, and also increase slightly the fundamental frequency of the part. And I don't know if you can see the video running here. Part is inside motorcycle. You can see it applies some vibration a lot cases, and it's working. It's not just nice looking shapes. It works. Another very nice case study we have with Archimoto. It's urban lightweighted electric vehicle company, which have a freedom to redesign many components completely for free from scratch. And we were able, with their engineers using our software, they were able to lightweight and consolidate many parts. And the beauty of this, 2 engineers within 6 days were able to redesign 7 parts, which later on were sent for additive manufacturing and investment casting. And all project took about a month. It's unimaginable that suspension system could be redesigned and manufactured within several months. So this is all the ability to automate and iterate quickly allows us to create these incredible results. And a little more advanced design. So Airbus, who's one of our customers, were able to run few cases. What we cannot show everything, but for this manifold, they allowed us to show. So basically, the original manifold was just block of material with many channels. Additive allows creating of smooth channels, which improve the flow. At the same time, it creates very complex assembly. So the idea here was to consolidate all this assembly into single part, and we needed to go here to extremely high resolution to allow this complex design to be manufactured. So this is basically what we can achieve. Jim, let's move a little, maybe zoom out a little bit again. And what's basically when we talk about the industry 4.0 and connected to digital manufacturing, how different it is from traditional manufacturing. In traditional manufacturing, typically we buy material, we design for this material, and it's going to manufacturing. The difference with additive that you can buy your raw material, but while printing, by tuning machine parameters, you can get totally different material properties in the end. And depending on additive manufacturing technology and machine parameters, we can have completely anisotropic material behavior while thinking that material will be isotropic. Just to explain, isotropic material, it's material which has the same properties in all directions. For instance, casted metal is isotropic, right? Composite structures are anisotropic because they have directional stiffness. And in additive manufacturing, depending on the technology, we can have different material properties. So this triangle between materials, machines, and software is extremely important. And you can see in the domain, especially for additive, there are a lot of partnerships. So we as a company, Paramaters, we partner with material companies as well as machine companies, and it allows us in access to a lot of material data, plus the advancements and the insights of the manufacturing technologies, which allows us to develop very sophisticated algorithms which can take all these different material properties into account. So most of solutions today on the market, they can handle for generative design only isotropic material properties, while we as a company, we expanded it beyond isotropic towards anisotropic. So for example, powder-based technologies, they have isotropic stiffness, but in terms of strength, material is completely anisotropic. And looking into composite structures or printed composites or FDM or FFF technologies, it's very popular today to print polymer with reinforced carbon fibers. They exhibit anisotropic material properties, and I believe most of audience here from defense industry, they're probably exposed to composite structures. So having software which is able to design accurately for anisotropy, including finding the optimal material orientation, is extremely important. And this is what I kind of explained verbally, but let me iterate it again. So basically, FFF or FDM technology, putting material in the given orientation, creates situation when direction 1 was much stiffer than 2 and 3, and even doing tests, we can see the differences. Having the software which takes into account and finding the optimal material distribution as well as optimal material orientation. I don't know if you can see here, there is a really toolpath of optimal material placement. I can show it a little more. Is extremely important. So software that we developed, the problem definition is very similar to what we presented, except of material properties are fully anisotropic. And before in manufacturing stage, user can also define Gcode parameters. So software is able to find the optimal material orientation and export model as STL or step file as a geometry, including the Gcode, which have the exact information of the material orientation. So it's very valuable and important. Actually, I can maybe show, let me close one of those, and I will show one of the examples how designs may look like having fully anisotropic material properties. I think we're running a little bit out of time, so a few more minutes and I will probably go to Q&A session. I just want to show. It's probably it's a different example, but it doesn't matter. So here the assumption that part is printed in XY orientation and Z basically layer by layer in Z, and not having the right part. If we look inside, we can see really that software is able to find what's the optimal material orientation and fiber orientation, which has extremely important information inside. So I can tell that the software right now in beta test, beta customers of big aerospace companies who are testing this. And so far we're getting very good feedback. They successfully printed few parts, and it's in testing right now, in physical testing of parts. So beyond finding optimal orientation, we also finding the optimal placement of material, we also find the orientation as well. All right, so I'll go back to the presentation here, and yeah, and talking about powder-based technologies, which isotropic in stiffness wise, but only if we print the part like this or we print part sideways, we'll exhibit different stresses in different direction because Z is here and Z is here. So also the final design will be slightly different, and software is able to take into account not only stiffness, also strength in terms of the orientation. And in few words, having the design and moving to manufacturing depending on what technology we are trying to use. And if we are using stereolithography, for instance, we need to find how to optimally orient the part, how to generate the support structures and slice all this model and prepare it for printing. So our software is also allows generation of support structures and slicing. So basically, like traditionally CAD CAM today can be done very effectively and automatically in our platform in terms of creating design, preparing the model for manufacturing as well. And today we can take it even further, just a glimpse on what additionally can be done in aerospace technology, I believe also in defense. Sandwich structures are very popular, or multi-material. So today additive can take us into multi-material printing. So keep in mind that generative design also allows us to find the optimal distribution of several materials having multi-material design as well. And this can be manufactured using Stratasys and other additive manufacturing technologies. And yeah, you probably could see that lattice structures concept is also quite popular today. Frankly speaking, lattice is less effective structurally than topology optimized generatively designed structures. But keep in mind that this software allows also to generate these effective structures as well. And we can take it even further beyond global optimization. We can take this towards what we call mesostructural optimization. So instead of having just periodic lattice unit cell, we can find really microstructural material distribution, which becomes much more effective than typical lattice. And yeah, I was maybe running a little bit too fast, but I think I will stop here. It was an overview of what generative designs can do. It's very, I would say, exciting. I would also quite complex, but we wanted to simplify it to make it accessible for users and to create very accessible workflow, including friendly UI. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, and here we are.
Thanks, Michael. I've got a couple of questions here in the chat box, and I welcome all folks that are on to use, you can either use the questions area if you have access to that, or the chat. It's over on the right side panel of the GoToMeeting space. So I've got one question here. Are there new standards that will be developed or required for generative design? Will software have to be qualified or verified?
It's a great question. If we look at today's design flow in many companies, using while decades, each company developed their own workflow, right? They have decided which CAD CE tools to use to build the workflow, and how exactly to use CAD, how to use FEA, mesh size, and how to apply loads. In terms of generative design, the field is quite new. I would say very new, and it's very good point here about the standards. As I know today, each company build their own workflow and be building their own standards. So each companies, they kind of have to decide which tool to use. And we have been working with many automotive companies. They have been testing and evaluating, of course, side-by-side comparisons with other solutions.
Another question is, are there open source algorithms or data sets?
Oh, it's a good point. So generative design is coming. The major technology behind the generative design is what is called topology optimization. I did my PhD in postdoc in the field of topology optimization when it was still, you know, I would say academic research topic. And suddenly it became very relevant with additive manufacturing. There are some open source simple codes, but you know, from my experience, there is a big gap between like academic algorithm and who have a robust commercial software tool which can solve any problem. So I would say open source algorithms, there are many academic papers describing the basic algorithms, but you know, usually the devil in the details, how you implement it, you make it work. How Paramaters is different, I think we have implemented several things that different significantly from what is well known, and that stabilizes our solution versus the others.
Another question here is, can you contrast Paramaters with OptiStruct?
Great point. So full disclosure, in past I used to work for Altair OptiStruct after my postdoc, so I know I know Altair OptiStruct very well. We just have better solution, I can say. Contrast, but in terms of side-by-side comparisons, our solution converges better. We are able to generate ready-to-manufacture design fully automatically without manual interruption into the process, like all the other solutions, or not only OptiStruct, all the other solutions on the market. If you try to run generative design, you don't get clean result which can be manufactured. You get a suggestion how design may look like. Users need to adjust threshold, to smoothen design, to recreate geometry, to reanalyze again, and it becomes really manual and long process. We are able to generate advanced algorithms which converge very effectively, including stress constraints, vibrations, which other solutions cannot do. And what I presented with anisotropic, as for my best knowledge, the anisotropic optimization nobody in the market is doing, and this is really opens the capabilities for all other manufacturing technologies.
Another question here is, does Paramaters include additive capabilities internally or interface to existing additive manufacturing offerings?
So if the question, additive capabilities, if the question about generating optimally orienting, generating supports and slicing, so no, we have our own proprietary technology which generate the supports and slicing. And the question about interfacing, so the designs, so if you create design, we can export it as STL, which is not the best but standard in the market, or STEP. If you create support structures, you can also export STL as support structures and model, and we also slice the model. So after slicing the model, user can export the slices in CLI or SLC formats, and if it's for stereolithography, they can have PNG. So I would say most of formats, there is little mess on this industry. There's no unified formats, but we cover most of those formats which can interface with other additive manufacturing technologies.
Another question, how does this program account for heat expansion, deformation, and heat sinking on the part affecting structural integrity?
Yeah, great point. So I didn't have time to touch base on this, but what we also have is heat conduction optimization topology, generative design capabilities, which allows designing of heat sinks. Again, it's not perfect solution. It's probably the first solution on the market. It's not perfect because it takes only conduction. It doesn't take convection into account yet, but it will come. As well as having coupled design capabilities of thermomechanics is also on our roadmap, so it will be coming in near future as well.
Which manufacturer's software has the necessary compatibility to allow your generated hatch paths to take precedence?
Can you please repeat again? I didn't get the beginning of this one.
Sure. Which manufacturer's software has the necessary compatibility to allow your generated hatch path to take precedence?
I believe they talk about anisotropic to have the tool path exactly there. So we export I hope I understood. So we export our anisotropic design with a toolpath in a universal Gcode. So currently it was successfully printed with using Ultimaker and Big Wrap. We are in discussions with Stratasys, which is the biggest player on the market. They have their own proprietary closed format. We're in discussions to collaborate and allow to export our designs in Stratasys format. So yeah, hope it will be coming soon.
Is there a part of your software that can optimize composite parts that are not done via additive? For example, fiber directions for laminated parts, or also volume fill type of functionality for composite parts?
Yeah, I understand. So basically, we have exactly customers doing exactly the same. What they do, they define a problem and they define volume fraction is 100%. They don't allow removal any material. And basically what software will do, it will also only find the fibers orientation within each layer. And so it is possible, yes, it's possible. Again, the design is not tailored for prepregs because they have predefined directions. These will be like free-form composites, but it will be within the full design space, not only additive.
You mentioned composites. Is the composites that you're dealing with related to the emerging composites additive systems?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question.
I think, for example, the automated fiber placement systems that use robotics to lay down, to either move a mold in front of a tape dispenser, or the other way around.
I think it should work because the Gcode that we export, at the end of the day, the Gcode is showing the toolpath and the amount of material deposited between points. So as long as the robotic arm can read all this data and have the right material deposited, it should work. We haven't tested, it should be tested, but I believe it should work.
So one of my questions would be, are you still looking for companies to help with testing some of the capabilities of your software?
Definitely. So we are running beta customer product of this anisotropic field. So in the beginning we didn't want to spread too much. We have 3 partners, but definitely we will be happy to expand this partnership. Yes.
I'm just going to read off 2 more questions and then we'll continue on. But any other questions, please do feel free to continue asking. And what we'll do is we're going to note down all these questions, and I'd be happy to relay them to Michael, and then we can get you those answers. So please do feel free to continue asking the questions. I'm just going to ask 2 more for the sake of time here. So another question here is, do you interface to conventional CAD environments? Example, NX, CATIA, and other software?
Yeah. So the interface today is done via files, right? So you can use if it's NX, CATIA, SolidWorks, whatever, you can export step file from there, import the step file to our platform, generate design, and export step back. We don't have right now tight integration with all those other solutions, but who knows what will happen in the future. But for now, yeah, so for now it will be just via files, which is not that big mess. I know it's not really, it's very, once you start using, you will see that the flow is very convenient.
And I have a comment here from VMEC. Patricia says it was an excellent presentation, eye-opening to some of the challenges and possibilities with additive design and manufacturing. So just wanted to give you that feedback there. So thank you for answering the questions, Michael. Appreciate it. Again, to anybody that has any further questions, feel free to either continue to put them in the chat until the end of this session, or reach out to me. You'll see my contact at the end of this presentation. You can reach out to me with any additional questions, and we can certainly get them forwarded to Michael to answer those for you.
Thank you very much again. I really appreciate. Thank you, Nasir. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, and thank you for all your questions. Looking forward for next presentation in your future.
So, so the next portion, the pilot demonstration projects, the next phase really of this program is to give your company the opportunity to realize the benefits of this technology and how it impacts your particular design workflows. So we do welcome you to apply for a no-cost generative design technology demonstration project by going to ccat.us/NERDIC/apply. We will also be sending this link to you following this presentation. Applications will be accepted until May 28th, I believe. You'll see on the in the GoToWebinar control panel, there's a section that you should be able to drop down. It's the handout section. You can actually download this presentation right from that. And other than that, you will be getting a link to download it as well. So to be inclusive, objective, and equitable, we will be using a selection process to choose a total of 6 submitted applications from defense supplier companies to conduct the technology demonstrations, and this will be done from June 7th to June 11th. It is by no means meant to preclude your company from getting a better understanding of how the technology can benefit you. Please contact me directly, and we can certainly arrange demonstrations of this technology on a one-to-one basis after June. For the applications that are chosen, the submitted parts along with its functional requirements will be used to produce optimized part designs using the generative design workflow. These parts will then be produced using additive technologies here at CCAT, at Berkshire Innovation Center, BSS Additive, and the University of Maine. The results of the generative design and additive manufacturing processes are intended to be presented during the Additive Technologies virtual demonstrations that are going to be done August 10th, 17th, and the 31st. Next slide, please. So for next week, we have another Industry 4.0 technology to introduce to you next week on May 11th. My colleague, Jeff Crandall, will give an introduction to 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and how this technology can assist your current manufacturing process. In this workshop, you'll gain an understanding of what additive manufacturing is and the materials and equipment used. You'll see some case studies of companies using additive manufacturing to aid and supplement their current manufacturing processes, and a discussion about what would be the next steps to learning more about using additive manufacturing in your company. We welcome you to join us for this workshop at 12 p.m. next week. Please register again at ccat.us/NERDIC. Upcoming technical workshops. So following next week, we have a host of Industry 4.0 technology introductory workshops planned for May and June. On May 18th, we'll have experts from the Berkshire Innovation Center, BSS Additive, the Mosaic Group, and Roundabout Consulting present a benchmarking of 3D printed parts that are manufactured with the desktop metal studio system. Here you can learn how installation, maintenance, upgrades, and operator training variables can affect quality control. Then on May 25th, we'll have the University of Maine and the Vermont Technical College present powder bed fusion and bound metal deposition additive manufacturing processes. Here you can learn the pros and cons of each technology, how additive manufacturing and the design advantages really this technology affords can add value within supply chains, all while increasing part functionality. Then on June 8th, Mitch Kaminsky and Steve Bukowski from RAM Engineering will present model-based definition. Here, I really urge you to tune in to learn what MBD is. What is model-based definition? How is design, manufacturing, and inspection data embedded into the 3D model? And how is that information used? And why MBD is a value? Why it's a cost-saving technology for your business? Then on June 15th, Renishaw will present machine tool probing for Industry 4.0. Here you can learn what machine tool probing is and how it helps your manufacturing process. So with that, I thank you again for tuning in. Really appreciate Dr. Michael's time today. Again, if you do have any additional questions, feel free to send me an email at my address down there below on the slide. And look forward to having you on the next NERDIC presentation. Thank you.